My eyes, your eyes. This documentary is dedicated to Dr. Sue Panchilla. My name is Nikki. I am a student in the Western Michigan University School of Social Work. I have completed this documentary as a requirement for my internship, which is field placement for my degree. And I am studying community organizing and plan to go to Western in May of 2011 for my master's in policy planning and administration, which is a year program. My eye condition is caused from prematurity of retinopathy. I was born 3.5 months premature, and I have detached retinas in both eyes. The purpose of this documentary is to raise awareness to the general public of those of us who are blind and visually impaired, and to reduce stereotypes and discrimination placed on our population by society, by ignorance, by oppression.
My name is Don Cooney, and I have 7 jobs. No, I'm just kidding. I teach in the School of Social Work here at Western. I'm a city commissioner. I'm the associate director of the Lewis Walker Institute for Race Relations.
You work with students, you work with social work students.
Yeah.
So you're aware of oppressed populations and things like that.
Right.
And I was just wondering if you could just talk about like students or employees or those in the community who are blind and visually impaired, and how do you think that they are advantaged and disadvantaged?
The technology has developed so much that, man, I can talk to you and you can look things up in the computer.
Yeah.
And you can make phone calls, and you have connections that weren't there before.
Right.
So I think, in one sense, you guys are a lot better off. On the other hand, it's got to be a struggle to get around campus. When it snows, getting from one building to the other must be very difficult. Getting into classrooms and finding out which classroom you're in, I don't know. Seems to me that'd be awful difficult, but you seem to do okay, no problem.
Score me 10 points, even in the snow.
I always used to bring in people from the Disability Resource Center on campus to my class.
Right.
And they'd say to the young people in the class, okay, you know what we call you guys? Tabs. Temporarily able-bodied. Because there's going to be a time when you're not going to be able-bodied.
Right.
And that makes you stop and think, you know? So my experience is that education can help us gain respect for people with a disability, can appreciate better the strengths and the abilities of people with a disability, and can make a huge difference in the lives of people that are with a disability, and also in the lives of the people that are able-bodied.
Right. This rally was organized in order to bring awareness to the firing of the director of the Michigan Commission for the Blind. All of her supporters organized a rally. All of them are blind and visually impaired, and all of them are doing this to show their support for a woman that has done nothing but make change for those of us who are blind and visually impaired. Each person here has a different connection with the director of the Michigan Commission for the Blind, and they are able to show their support for her in any way they possibly can.
I think part of what we're trying to do is trying to change what it means to be blind here in Michigan by helping people to understand that it's giving people a positive attitude and a positive self-image. It's not about rules and regulations. It's not about heavy-handed management. It's about helping people to self-actualize, helping people to be part of their community, love themselves as a blind person, believe that it's okay to be blind. And that's what Christine's about. That's what we started. We, the National Federation of the Blind, went to the legislature in '78 to start the Commission for the Blind. We envisioned a place where people could, where blind consumers would have input into how the operation is run, the kinds of services provided. And right now we're being cut out of that, and we want back in.
Describe the onset of your type of blindness or visual impairment.
I'm premature with too much oxygen in the incubator and detached retinas at 16.
I was born with congenital glaucoma, and I had sight until 1997, and right now I'm waiting for my new prosthesis to come in. That's why I've got these glasses on, because I've only got one in, but 1 in 10,000 babies are born with congenital glaucoma.
I was born pretty much blind. My retinas never fully developed. I had a condition which is called retinal dysplasia, and basically my retinas never totally formed, and so they ended up detaching. So I've been blind all my life since the age of 6 weeks, which I guess has its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage being there's not so much of an adjustment to it. When you're born with it, it's a lot easier to cope with. And I guess the disadvantage is not having the concept of sight and not being able to know when somebody says, oh yeah, you know, that's red or that's blue. I have no idea what that is. It's all the same to me.
I lost my sight when I was about 8 or 9, 10. It went sort of slowly, about 3 or 4 years. So it was turned out to be a genetic issue.
I was born completely blind, and I actually think I've definitely gained sight. Like right now, I can see. Like I have peripheral vision.
I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I've had that all my life.
My condition is a condition known as congenital glaucoma. So I was born with congenital glaucoma and cataracts.
I'm Dorothy Fancher. I'm the Assistant Director at Disabled Student Resources and Services, soon to change our name to Disability Services for Students, and I've been here for about 8 years now.
How many students every year do you think you see in general that have disabilities?
For all disabilities, we work with about 500 students every semester.
Okay.
For visual impairments, probably about a dozen every semester. The hardest part is getting the textbooks and course packs in electronic format. And sometimes that takes a long time, and that gets very frustrating when it's halfway through the semester and you still don't have a book. We work with the publishers in the bookstore to try and get the materials in an alternate format, so in Word or a PDF file. And once we know that the books have been purchased, we contact the publishers to request the books in an alternate format. You do have to purchase the books because of copyright laws, but then we try to get them as quickly as possible. In an alternate format. Sometimes the publishers aren't too rapid about returning the books to us as in an alternate format. So sometimes we have to scan the books ourselves, which means we would cut the binding off the book, put it through an optical reader, and it scans and reads both sides of the page of a book at once. And we can scan the entire book and process it to a Word or PDF file, put it onto a flash drive for students, and then they can have their entire book onto their computer.
What's the hardest subject material that you've ever had to make accessible?
Math and science.
Yeah, I would agree.
Trying to read a math problem with not having a math background and trying to explain a formula for chemistry or biology to a visually impaired student is extremely difficult. And some students are good with the Braille math, which is what I think it's called Nemeth.
Yeah.
Some students are good with that and some aren't. But it's trying to read a formula or describe a chart or a graph in terms that the student understands what is trying to be displayed.
There's nothing in my head that would make me think that you cannot do what we're doing in class.
Right.
Everything that we're doing in class.
Right.
It's just that you need a different way to express it.
Right.
And to be able to figure out those different ways and be able to implement those different ways is just a little bit more of a challenge.
What responsibilities did you have as a child?
I was brought up with a twin brother who's been blind, and I went to the Michigan School for the Blind. And after the School for the Blind, I went to the vending program under the Commission for the Blind, and I retired 7 years ago under the Commission for the Blind's Business Enterprise program.
I lived on a dairy farm, and we had to feed calves and put together milk machines and dust. I remember dusting an antique chair, put so much polish on it that when this man sat down on it, he had a white t-shirt on, and when he left, it was all the decorations from the chair on the back of his shirt.
Oh, Lord. Same as my brothers and sisters, you know, we had to make our beds and do our chores and to burn the trash. And, you know, they set the table and take the dog out. I don't know.
So just the basics.
Yeah, basics. Yeah, like everybody else, right.
I had a very rich play environment. A lot of people would consider it to be a little bit dangerous. My father ran a excavating business, so there was a lot of heavy equipment around, lots of supplies and materials laying around, but it was a really rich learning environment because I learned all about equipment, I learned about metal, I learned about bricks and concrete, and at one point they stockpiled all of the materials to build a water system for Thomas Township. My father was the supervisor, and so I learned about what a fire hydrant looked like all the way down in the ground, and water valves and water pipes. And so that was a really rich environment. And then later on we moved to Traverse City, and we had 80 acres, and my brother and I were out in the woods most of the time, and we had a tractor, and we had cars we tore apart and put back together, and all kinds of stuff like that.
I had to do chores around the house, I had to keep my room clean and all that stuff, and sometimes that was a little more difficult because obviously not being able to see where things are to keep them clean makes it a little harder, but I'm glad that my parents didn't baby me or shelter me because of it.
As a child, my responsibilities were the same as I had 5 sisters, and so we all had the same. I wasn't treated any different, so cleaning. I was responsible for washing my own clothes, self-grooming, just normal stuff.
I was usually the one who had to do dishes. You know, I did the dishes. I was responsible for cleaning my room. Like, I did the chores and everything basically that a normal, like, sighted person would have to do.
When I'm walking around, I listen to everything. I listen to the road, the cars, the people, everything. Anything can be an audio clue for me. If I feel like I'm coming close to a building, I will tap my can on the sidewalk to get the echo effect, so I can hear how fast the sound comes back to me to hear how close to buildings I am. When I'm crossing streets, I will listen to the traffic. You can cross busy streets and not even look at the light changes just by listening to the cycles in traffic. So when I'm crossing a street, I know that I can put the wall of traffic on one side and line my body up so that I can go straight across the street. The undercover walk.
How do I know when to cross the street?
That's the trick, I guess.
Emily is fully sighted. I gave her a quick training in using my cane. Emily has seen me walk around campus and around town, so she is able to emulate my cane style. So she was able to go to a store, obtain non-visual directions, find the store, ask the cashier what her money was because it wasn't folded for her, and there are certain situations where I might not be prepared, or for any number of reasons where I do have to put my trust in the cashier. But most of the time I do have my money folded or labeled so that I can effectively find my bills.
It's hard to tell depth with the cane. Okay.
What are you experiencing right now?
I'm frustrated right now.
I tell the difference between my money by the way I fold my money. I will take a $10 bill and fold it hot dog style and then fold it in half again. And for my $20 bills, I will fold it hamburger style and then fold it hot dog style and then fold it in half again, so it's like a little square. I fold my $5 bills in half, and I normally don't have anything more than $20, so I don't really worry about 50s or $100 bills because I really don't have that kind of money. I don't fold my single bills any certain way, I just leave them flat. I have a labeler that I can label my money with in Braille. So there's a 1, a 5, a 20, there's a 50, which I mean, I don't have 50s, so I wouldn't have to go over 20, but I can put the money into the labeler and then push down on that Braille 1, and then a 1 will come out on the money. So I can literally Braille my money if I don't feel like folding it. And that is normally what I do.
Oh, great. Thanks, guys. You too. All right. Success.
What is your opinion of people who are blind or visually impaired?
That's hard to judge an entire group. My opinion of them, as I don't empathize because I don't know how it feels, but I feel bad. I guess I feel like, as a whole, a group of people, they'd be hardworking because you just to like have to like, especially now I've gotten to know you, like I just think about like the other day when you were at my house, I just think it's like, man, I can't even imagine just every time you have to go to the bathroom, like not just, you know what I mean, just not seeing, like yeah. I can't even imagine how much more work it must be.
I think that the first word that comes to mind is that they're very creative, because they have to come up with different ways to get around everyday life in a modified type of way, and I think that another word type of way, and I think that another word that comes to mind is very independent. I think maybe people who don't really know someone who is visually impaired might think when they first glance at them that they have to depend a lot on other people, but really what I've come to find out is that that they really like to be independent just as anybody else does.
Maybe we appear to be needing more help than other people, but we also want to be, be independent and do as much as we can.
I think basically blindness doesn't keep you from very much. I can't drive a car for sure, but if I want to get someplace, I'll find a way to get there.
What stereotypes have you been exposed to regarding this population?
To be honest, I've never really even had experiences working with or interacting with people who were blind until I came to Western. And then it was always like because it would be like in my bigger classes, and it wasn't really stereotypes, it was just kind of awkward situations that would happen, like, oh, there's a blind kid in class next to me and I didn't know how to tell him that we were passing papers or something. But stereotypes, I'm assuming, just from what I've seen with people in general with disabilities, that they assume that you're not as intelligent, that somehow it impairs that, or your ability to physically, you can walk fine.
Yeah.
You can do jumping jacks, it's okay.
Yeah. I think the biggest stereotype that comes to mind is that visually impaired people can't do a lot of things that people who can see do.
This is very impressive.
What?
Well, okay, I'm wondering, how much can you see?
I had more sight when I was younger, but I have a little bit of light, a little bit of shadow. It depends on the lighting.
Can you see any of me?
No, so don't worry.
What do you mean?
If your hair looks bad.
No, I don't think my hair looks bad.
What education have you received during your years as an employee or as a student that's purpose was to inform you of the most respectful methods of interacting with this population?
As a student, none whatsoever at all. I went to a really small school and there's nothing for that. And then I work with people with disabilities, including blindness, and mostly developmentally disabled and mentally ill, but some of them are blind too. So I learned a lot from that, just in general, how to handle people, especially, I know it's cheesy, but treating people the way you'd, if that were me, how I would want to be treated. And especially when referring to people or talking to people, or just, I guess, a way of viewing illnesses or disabilities, instead of being you're not a blind person, you're someone who is blind, so you come before the disability. Yeah. And that's probably the most important thing I've learned, is to just remember that the person always comes before the disability.
I have had no formal education in learning or being taught how to deal with people with impairment of any kind. I was never a setting where it was educated formally.
Imagine that you are a person who is blind or visually impaired. How would you experience life?
The other thing would be to trust other people. You just don't know who's honest and who's not, and you have to rely on their help. For example, a bus driver or a cab driver, you have to rely on them to be honest, to pay them, to get you to go where you want to go, to get there safely.
You have to be willing to put yourself out there, and willing to make mistakes, and willing to be confused and laugh at yourself. I feel that's how I see. I guess that's how I react in general to things. But you know what I mean? You would have to just get used to having to ask strangers for help and having to ask people for things when you need it, or the frustration too of being no, I can do this. Really, I assure you, I can handle this on my own. Yeah. And then trying to find the in between of asking for too much help or not asking for enough, trying to find a balance between that in your life every single day.
It would very much affect my my career as a musician, because I would have to really, really, really listen, and that would be a really awesome aspect, that I would have to completely rely on my ears for listening in the orchestra or listening to the people around me, and completely learn by ear and not through sheet music.
The trainings that I've done over the last couple of years have been designed to enable those living with sight to empathize with those living without sight. I will have students make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches blindfolded, and I will take a group of students, put them around a table, and I will not give them any direction. I will place everything they need on the table: the bread, the knives, the peanut butter and jelly, the plates, the napkins, the cups, the water pitcher. But they have to use communication skills to be able to formulate a plan to make sure everyone gets the peanut butter and jelly, that everyone has a turn with the bread, and they have to do it blindfolded. And our society is very comfortable with nonverbal communication. But if you're a person who is blind or has a visual impairment, your nonverbals are hindered. You can't exactly see what the other person's doing, if they're waving or if they're winking at you or smiling. So it put a really amazing spin on the class's communication styles, because they learned how to communicate using sound. They learned how to use their voice, and they realized that they were able to recognize each other's voices. I teach the classes how to do human guide, which has previously been referred to as sighted guide. But now it's called human guide because people with blindness and visual impairments can lead each other around using human guide. If I have a friend who can't see and I know where a place is and they don't, and if we're in a crowded location, we can just link together and the person that's most comfortable guiding can guide us. It's also used to guide people through locations that might be kind of crowded. It might be easy to be separated. And it's also good if you're walking in a group and you want to keep up with the group and keep in step. And it works there too, and it's safe. It's not that society is intentionally trying to exclude an entire population, but society is set up for people with sight by people with sight. How do you think legislation and policies are advantaging people with disabilities?
Well, you know, they call that the first George Bush's good deed, that he passed the Persons with Disabilities Act. And I think that made a huge difference. Yeah. For example, I think in the city I see with buses, we have to adapt our buses so that people with a handicap can use those buses. Right. That's not an option. In order to get federal money, we have to do that. Right. So I think federal legislation has helped a lot. If there's not a group out there that's advocating with the people with a handicap, it's just going to get pushed off the agenda. Right. There's too many problems out there now. Right. We got unemployment. We got healthcare problems, we got terrorists, we got all these other things. So unless there's an advocacy group out there who is working with and fighting with people with a handicap, it's just going to go right off the agenda.
How supportive is your family to your blindness or visual impairment?
Well, I've been married to a blind lady, and we have 5 kids, and my family accepts my blindness because they don't know any different.
They were very supportive. I mean, my mother in particular found resources, and I went on to a private boarding school. And she found places that were Braille books for me. So I got my French books and my math books in Braille.
My two parents probably had a little different attitudes. My mother was real paranoid, and my father was more open to me trying new things. And I had quite a bit of useful vision during the day when the light was good. So like he bought me a shotgun, and I'd go out hunting with him. I don't think I ever shot anything. I shot at stuff.
I guess they did the best they could. My parents, when I was born, they paid for their insurance the first thing before they paid for anything. So I had multiple surgeries, and I went to Philadelphia a few times and to Cleveland Clinic and Ann Arbor ever since I was 3 weeks old.
I can honestly say I feel pretty lucky to have them be as supportive as they are. Like, I know if I need something that I can go to them, and I know that they'll understand if I have a problem that relates to me being blind. They won't just say, oh, it's, you know, they won't just blow it off or just think I'm trying to get, like, I don't know, some sympathy or something. They'll actually, like, listen to me, and they're really great. They're just so supportive of everything I do.
Can you describe the onset of your visual impairment?
Yes. Well, I had an accident when I was 7 years old, back in 1960, and it left me totally blind. But I went to Philadelphia, and they helped me get some of my vision back.
When did you start getting your vision back?
About in 1965.
Was that expected at the time, or was it a surprise?
It was a surprise.
What responsibilities did you have as a child when you sustained your visual impairment?
Well, I had to get up, do light work. I also read off of large print cards. That I bent in a in a certain way, and then I could tell what they were, because I could not really read them. But I wanted to make my mother happy.
There's a lot of powerful language in our society used as insults and put-downs towards people with disabilities. I developed a card game, played along the same format as Old Maid, to be able to address these stereotypes that are propelled over generations through the use of our language. A lot of put-downs, such as retard, mental, slow, handicap, that are used to demean many people in society, are also words that are used referring to those of us with disabilities. So not only do we have these disabilities, but these words that were formed by people that don't have disabilities are used to categorize our population. So the hope of this game is to throw this language around freely, laugh, and have a good time, just as this language gets thrown around in society, to prove that it is hurtful language, and that there are so many other ways that people with disabilities can be referred to and thought of, and not just the negative, stereotypical vocabulary that is used in order to demean our population.
Be manipulative
And
window
freaks
licker.
out.
With special needs. Who freaks out?
With special needs.
With special needs.
Who's unfortunate.
Hi, I'm Cassie, and my son has congenital esotropia. This is Marshall. So basically what that means is he was born with crossed eyes, and they didn't correct themselves by 3 months. I know now that if a newborn's eyes are not straight by 3 months, they won't be straight. Of course, nobody told me that. At the time, I just thought he had, well, I was told he had slow developing eye muscles. The pediatricians didn't catch it, they didn't seem to care. We ended up taking him to an optometrist at 4 months old because we were concerned. And they immediately said, oh my goodness, yes, he has this. So right now he has had 1 surgery to straighten them out. They still have a long ways to go. We've had months and months of patching an eye all day long to try and strengthen the other eye. Lots of work. It's been a long journey.
The challenge of the wall climb was not being able to see the rocks ahead of me or above me to be able to make my next move. And I like to plan. I'm an organizer. I organize a lot of events on Western's campus through Swords into Plowshares Peace Center. And if I'm in a situation like the wall climb where I can't plan my next move, I get frustrated. And this is something that I wanted to show because it is something that can be applied to life. There was one rock and it was the one I couldn't get over because I was too tired to jump up, to reach it, to pull myself up. But that's a symbol for challenges that I've overcome. Even directing this documentary was a challenge to say, yes, I'm serious about doing this. This is my way of advocating and educating for myself and others with blindness and visual impairments and disabilities in general.
Yeah, I feel like I am always having to prove myself, forced to prove myself, because if I don't, then I won't get jobs or opportunities, things like that. The purpose of me going so far in my educational career is to show the bigger society that I am so much more than a visual impairment. That's just one part of me, and I was Leatrice before the visual impairment came along, and that's what I would like to be accepted for. So if I have to go above and beyond my sighted competitors, then that's exactly what I will do, because I'm very driven to succeed, and I want to be an example to my child, and that's just the kind of person that I am.
Every single job or volunteer experience I've ever had, I've had to prove myself. I was an intern at a radio station in Detroit, and it was the most fun I've ever had because they were completely willing to work with me. They treated me with respect, and it was so much fun to be able to say that I interned with a very successful radio company for a summer, and they just gave me a lot of confidence and were completely willing to work with me. But every single time I've stepped out and went to do something, I encountered the, how do we do this? How do we help you? Or, can you do this at all? And I would have to always be the one being direct and saying, yes, I can do this. I want to do this, so I'm going to find a way to do it. And you can be on board with me and believe in me as much as I believe in my potential, or you can not believe in me, but I'm still going to do everything I'm going to do because I'm a person and I'm entitled to my goals and I'm entitled to my freedom just like anyone else. It doesn't mean I have a false sense of entitlement or that I think the world owes me something, but all I feel like I deserve is the same amount of respect that I would give to anyone else.
People should not make assumptions about every blind person or any person with a disability just because they've had experiences of one sort or another based on one person of that disability. I mean, like people who encounter me. I have a hearing impairment in addition to being totally blind. So, you know, my set of circumstances is a lot different than anyone else's. And some of the experiences that I've had, you know, have taught me that people just like to assume things, you know, that they form certain stereotypes about blindness or about somebody, for example, who's in a wheelchair or whatever the case is. They just form all these stereotypes and for no real reason. You know, obviously the mind naturally does that, but it's not right. It's not right to assume that because I'm blind, I can't hear you, or I have a superpower. No, I don't have a superpower. I'm just another person. And I think that's something that society sometimes forgets or doesn't take the time to acknowledge, is that people with disabilities are just as capable and just as able, and in some situations unable, to do things as anyone else.
Dance is freeing and dance is therapeutic, and I can use dance to be able to illustrate certain aspects that I would like to portray in this documentary without actually coming out and saying it. So the dance scene is basically designed to show how I can feel in society. There are those of us that are blind and visually impaired that believe that we are not an oppressed population. And it's because the word oppression is an emotional word, and it brings up a lot of feelings when it's used. Especially if a member of a population has worked all their lives, has fought the system, has won over the system, and has continued to live their life as if they don't have a disability. And I would like to address that because that is a thought that has been brought to my attention, and I respect every person who has a disability, but at the same time, I have to raise awareness in my own method, and I understand that it could ruffle other people's feathers with and without disabilities, but as a part of my activism, I choose to educate through a documentary because our society is so driven by the media and our entertainment that I would love to be able to use this media to educate and just open up people's minds to different things.
front of the bus.
That one?
Nope, over here.
Because I like completely missed it, which is dangerous. No, it was because point no direction. Because it's dangerous to do that. Like that, I would have never done it. That's so fucking dangerous. Is it because I gave you that? Because I just asked, where is it? Is it here? And then they'll tell me which way to go. When there's like which way to go where? Yeah, which way the bus is. You have to be specific. Because you can't, you have to use words and you have to communicate a visual description in words.
Should I redo it? Like,
Nope, it's just fine.
what should I do?
I just pick out an outfit or something.
Okay. Hold on. I usually don't get the giggles.
Yeah.
Alright. Alright.
Okay. All right. Go towards the closet.
Alright. 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 Oh, this is not natural. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Alright.
Okay.